Hello everyone. I'm the co-presenter of this session, Engineer Ghritartha Goswami, Research Associate at the Northeastern Regional Institute of Science and Technology, Arunachal Pradesh, India. Till now, Professor Sudeep Basak sir has highlighted the preliminary background information, aims and objectives, and the soil stabilization using mechanical techniques. So I'll be discussing the chemical stabilization section, and so everyone is aware that providing adequate bearing capacity to the foundation of infrastructure with acceptable serviceability criteria is very important. So less stable soil may cause severe damage to structure and reduce its lifespan. So which necessitates the applicability of soft soil stabilization. So amongst various soil stabilization techniques, using appropriate admixture is one of the popular methods. And my study is an attempt to investigate the suitability of bigasses and stone dust as the admixtures with soft soil on improvement in terms of compaction and penetration characteristics, especially for transport infrastructure. Yes. So in this slide, you can see the materials. So the first is the virgin soil. The soft soil sample used in the study for the laboratory test was collected from Guwahati, India, by means of auger boring technique from a depth of about 1 to 2 meters below the ground surface. The natural moisture content of the soil was measured about 31%. And the sample was air dried and thereafter used in the laboratory for investigation. The particle size distribution performed by sieve analysis and hydrometer tests indicated that the soil can be classified as well-graded silty clay. And the PSD curve is presented in the following slides. The next material is bigasses. So bigasses is the dry, pulpy, fibrous residue of sugar cane after extraction of the juice, and it is extensively used as building material as well as for manufacturing biofuel. The raw bigas collected from sugar mills are oven dried. In my study, the raw bigasses collected from sugar mills are oven dried and thereafter burnt to ashes, which is used as an admixture for the soil stabilization. The bigasses is generally dark in wet condition and gray in dry condition. It consists of silica and oxides of magnesium, calcium, iron, and so many of chemicals. The bigas is locally available in bulk quantities for utilization in ground improvement for transport infrastructure. You can see the photo here. Next material is the stone dust. So stone dust is a waste material generated in the course of crushing stones in a stone crusher that produces angular aggregates in different sizes, which is used as civil construction material. Stone dust is mostly reduced into powdered form after breakdown of boulders and rocks, which appears grayish in color. It is largely available in Guwahati and in other parts of Assam as well. A representative photographic view of the stone dust is used in this experiment is shown in the slide. So next is the study area. So limited research is carried out previously by other researchers with virgin soil at the study area around the Dipor Bill. It is a freshwater lake and it is also a national bird sanctuary surrounded by national highway and railway tracks. The soil sample was taken from location near a highway and the railway track. So you can see here the test approach and plan. The particle size distribution from sieve analysis data indicated that sand and gravel components of 90% and 10% respectively. The plot of maximum dry density, sorry, I think I have skipped one slide. Okay, so this is test approach and plan. So the virgin soil collected was first oven dried for 48 hours and thereafter manually grinded and uniformly mixed with the admixtures at selected proportions by weight. Two different categories of stabilized soil samples, one with bigasses and the other with stone dust, were separately tested and comparative studies were carried out. While standard Proctor test is suitable for ordinary transport infrastructure, pavements for heavier traffic loading, especially for aircrafts and, for example, aircrafts and heavy trucks, they demand modified Proctor test. So in this study area, the traffic loading is much lighter and hence the standard Proctor test has been followed. The compaction characteristics of the stabilized soil samples are determined by standard Proctor test following the procedure described in ASTM D698. On the other hand, the penetration characteristic of the treated soil samples were found out by a CBR test of unsoaked and soaked samples. So as per recommendation of ASTM D181883, to carry out the test, the proportion of admixtures has been varied between 2 to 10% by weight of the dry virgin soil sample and mixed separately with the soil. A total of 33 sets of tests were performed, including the untreated soil. You can see this in the table. And to minimize the experimental error, 3 separate testing was conducted for each set of tests. And the average values of the test results were taken for analysis and interpretation. So in the laboratory, the CBR specimens were prepared at the optimum moisture content for each test category. Both the bigasses and stone dust are largely available in bulk quantities around the entire study area in Assam at cheap rates. So, and previous studies also revealed that the optimization of compaction and penetration characteristics was achieved under when the quantities vary between 4 to 12% of the weight of dry soil. And in order to ensure adequate enhancement of the compaction penetration characteristics of the treated soil while limiting the transport cost to ensure cost effectiveness, the maximum quantity of admixtures have been restricted to 10% in the study. And previous study also suggested that bigasses needs to be treated with lime or cement as an activator, especially when the soil is expensive or very soft compressible clay. But in this study, the virgin soil is silty clay. So there is no activator might enhance the cost significantly compared to the relative benefits in the enhancement in the compaction penetration characteristics. So the local soil characteristics, considering the local soil characteristics, the activator has not been used in the soil stabilization. Yes, the next slide, this slide, the particle size distribution curve obtained from sieve analysis indicated that sand and gravel contents of 90% and 10% respectively. And the plot of maximum dry density versus moisture content for virgin soil, that is without any admixture, obtained from the standard Proctor test, from which this we can see the optimum moisture content and dry density have been evaluated as 19.2% and 15.95 kilonewton per meter cube. For the CBR test for unsoaked and soaked virgin soil, the plot of applied plunger load versus the penetration is shown as load penetration data for CBR test of untreated virgin soil. And after correction in the load axis, the CBR values for unsoaked and soaked specimens have been evaluated as 4.92% and 2.66%. The Proctor test results for the treated soil have been presented in the next slide. So you can see the standard penetration test here, SPT. In this slide, you can see the CBR test results for unsoaked and soaked treated soil. Okay. In this slide, variation of normalized optimum moisture content alpha 0 with increasing bigasses content has been shown. And as the bigasses content increased from 2% to 10%, the parameter alpha 0 was found to increase in the range of 1.12 to 1.47. The pattern of variation is being curvilinear with descending slope and a stabilizing trend at the bigasses content of 10%. And the second figure depicts the variation of alpha 0 with increasing content of stone dust. So the normalized optimum moisture content was observed to increase in the range of 1.09 to 1.61 as the content of stone dust increased from 2% to 10%. The pattern of variation being relatively linear. The value of alpha 0 greater than unity indicated increase in optimum moisture content due to the addition of admixtures, the value being slightly higher in case of stone dust. These observations may be justified by the possible occurrence of ion exchange between the admixtures and soil particles. In addition, the admixtures particles have probably reduced the free silt and clay fraction in the soil, thereby occupying larger void spaces for water retention. Yes, in this slide, you can see the maximum dry density. So this slide presents the variation of normalized maximum dry density with bigasses. As observed, the parameter alpha m decreases linearly in the range of 0.95 to 0.99 as the bigasses content increase from 2% to 10%. In the case of stone dust, alpha m decreased following a curvilinear pattern with descending slope with increasing stone dust content. The range of variation being 0.97 to 1.0 in case of stone dust. So these values of alpha m less than unity indicated as reduction in the value of maximum dry density due to addition of admixtures. So this is advantageous in terms of decrease in the self weight of the subgrade with stabilized soil at optimum moisture content. The observation may be justified with the possible accumulation and flocculation of virgin soil particles with ion exchange between the admixture molecules, which has probably initiated reduction in the weight volume ratio. So the next figure is California bearing ratio. The variation of the normalized CBR against increasing bigaseous content is also like plotted here. The increasing bigaseous content from 2% to 10% initiated the parameter alpha C to increase in the range of 1 to 2.2 and 1.25 to 3.25 for unsoaked and soaked tests respectively. The pattern of variation in both the cases was observed to be curvilinear with ascending slopes for unsoaked tests. A reverse curvature was noted with a point of inflection at the bigaseous content of about 5%. The last figure depicts the variation of parameter alpha m with the stone dust content, and the range of variation of alpha C was found to be 1.0 to 2.7 and 1.25 to 2.3, the unsoaked and soaked tests respectively. The pattern of variation was observed to be curvilinear with ascending slope. You can see in this figure. For both the cases, the value of the parameter alpha C was found to be greater than unity for unsoaked and soaked, for greater than unity. So this indicates the CBR with respect to untreated soil. It is due to enhancement in CBR due to like addition of admixtures. So this value corresponding to those with the stone dust are higher compared to those with the bigaseous, which implies that the soil stabilized with stone dust produced lower penetration susceptibility. So these observations may be justified with the possible chemical reaction between the soil particles and admixtures. The admixtures have probably attributed to cementing effects on the soil, increasing their penetration resistance, thereby increasing the CBR, and such cementing efficiency appears to be more in case of stone dust. The untreated virgin soil has specific gravity of 2.64, whereas the bigaseous and stone dust has specific gravity of 2.51 and 2.71. Therefore, the mixing of virgin soil with the admixtures at various proportions altered the specific gravity of the treated soil. So this factor has attributed to the alteration in CBR values of the treated soil. So in the next slide, you can see the design criteria of embankments using untreated and treated soils. So highways are considered as national importance and it requires periodical maintenance. So in rural areas of Assam, India, constructing a pavement requires higher thickness of base course and sub-base course to provide adequate drainage facility. So which undoubtedly increase the construction cost. The study, like I'm discussing, was an attempt to estimate the cost of construction of pavement with and without additives. So from the analysis, it was observed that using soil treated with bigaseous in pavement construction is more economic in comparison to untreated soil and soil treated with stone dust. So the analysis reveals that the curtailment of cost compared to embankment constructed with untreated virgin soil is reduced by 14.43% and 9.67%. We can see this in the next slide. So in the case of bigaseous and stone dust, at a 10% proportion respectively. For designing the proposed pavement, the project requirements were established by analyzing the soil properties, the dimension of the road, and design parameters such as design life and traffic estimations were considered as per Indian standards technical specification. The embankment trial geometry was finalized following the recommended guidelines available, and this research was attributed to stabilized soil along the stretches of Dipor, the freshwater lake that forms a channel to Brahmaputra river in Guwahati. So as per the sample analysis as well as transportation and storage, Uh, an optimum of 10% bigases and 10% stone dust can be used for securing the banks of deployable significantly to stabilize the soil. And the local availability of both bigases and stone dust in bulk quantity is major advantage. In addition, the optimum percentage of additives conforms to economic stabilization of pavement and subgrades, thereby curtailing the construction cost significantly. So in this slide, you can see the components of cost, and just related to bringing additives to the site, time of treatment and mixing costs are added in the analysis. Optimum time and temperature of calcination process to produce bigases is with high pozzolanic activity is 3 hours and 600 degrees Celsius at 10 degrees Celsius per minute heating rate. So while there are various procedures of mixing materials at the site, the mix in place method, which should be equipped with rotavator and a compacting with smooth wheel roller to achieve the desired density is recommended. So you can see this in the slide that we have covered the base course, sub-base course. For untreated soil, the cost is around 2.5 million, and soil treated with bigases 2.1 million, soil treated with stone dust 2.2 million, bigases requirement, what we need, requirement transportation and mixing 0.01 million, stone dust 0.01 million. So summarized total cost is untreated virgin soil 2.5 million, soil treated with bigases 2.146 million, and soil treated with stone dust. This is for 1000 meter, and this is followed as per APWRD rates and as per local market rates, and India M stands for this million. Next, let's come to the conclusion. So there are different methods of soft ground improvement, which may broadly classified as energy method, consolidation technique, reinforcement, and chemical stabilization, as Professor Sudip Basak sir has very greatly described. And the primary objective of the ground improvement is to enhance of its strength and stiffness. So stone column, as sir has explained, this is like a combination of consolidation as well as reinforcement technique. And stone columns carry the majority of imposed structural loads while also assisting accelerated consolidation. Installation of perforated piles is a relatively new technique, but appears to be quite effective if properly designed. So using admixtures like bigases and stone dust enhances the compaction and penetration characteristics. Hence, they have been quite effective in transport infrastructure. Lastly, the use of bigases and stone dust can reduce the cost significantly, and hence the appropriate choice of the admixture would depend on several other factors, including local availability and site treatment procedure cost. So these are our publications. We have like in total 5 journal papers we have published in Scopus and SCI indexed journals, and 4 conference papers in reputed international events. We would like to acknowledge the following. Thank you.